So we've taken a look into what each championship club has been the best at this season. Now it's time to look into the negative statistics. What has your club been the worst at this season? I've picked out one negative stat for each championship club. And without any further ado, let's hop into this one. Starting out with Bournemouth, they have missed more big chances than any other championship side this season, with 80 big chances being missed throughout the season, and the player most guilty of missing big chances throughout the whole of the championship is actually Dom Solanke. Obviously, he's put up some brilliant numbers this season and overall has had an absolutely fantastic year, and it does tend to be the strikers who receive the most big chances also coincidentally miss the most big chances, but 36 big chances missed from Solanke this year, which I thought was interesting. For Barnsley, there were plenty of statistics that I could have picked out, but they are not just the lowest scoring championship team this season, having only scored 33 goals, so averaging way under a goal per game. They've actually only scored 23 goals throughout this whole season in open play, which is absolutely shocking. Birmingham haven't had any clutch moments throughout this whole season. They're the only championship side to have not scored after the 90-minute mark this season. Obviously, they're pretty much the opposite of Coventry here, who have scored about 20 after the 90-minute mark. As well as failing to score after 90 minutes, Birmingham have also not won any matches this season after they have fallen behind, so that comeback ability doesn't seem to be present in the Birmingham squad. Blackburn have been guilty of racking up the yellow cards this season. They've picked up more bookings than any other championship club, 115 this season, and they also went on the longest run without scoring a goal away from home. 7 consecutive matches Blackburn went in the second half of the season without hitting the back of the net, which was some contrast to how regularly they were firing them in the first half of the season. Blackpool have scored the fewest amount of goals from outside the box this season. Only 2 of Blackpool's goals this season were scored from outside the box, one of them being that absolute cracker scored by Josh Bowler. Can't think off the top of my head what the other one was from outside the box, but yeah, that's quite an interesting statistic. Maybe next season Blackpool need to have a few more pop shots, it seems. It's been a nightmare watching Bristol City try and defend at times this season. Not only have they had one of the worst defensive records in the league, but they've also given away more penalties than any championship side this season, along with Birmingham. 9 penalties Bristol City have given away this season. That is absolutely shocking. Cardiff don't tend to hit the back of the net in the first half. They're the lowest scoring first half team throughout the whole of the championship. They've only scored 9 goals throughout this entire season in the first 45 minutes of matches. As well as that, Cardiff also went on the longest losing streak this season with 8 consecutive matches under McCarthy, which they lost. Coventry have been the most dribbled past team this season. 413 successful dribbles being registered against Coventry this season. Obviously, maybe that's a coincidence of their personal style of play and how they choose to defend and things like that, but an interesting statistic nonetheless. We've seen a few Derby players lose their heads at times this season. They've racked up more red cards than any other side with 7 red cards this season. They've also gone on the longest consecutive losing streak away from home, as they lost 9 games on the bounce away from home, and it really was that away form in the second half of the season which ultimately meant that that great escape didn't end up materialising. We've seen Fulham break all sorts of records with 106 goals scored throughout this season, and judging off this statistic it could have been even more, because they've actually hit the post more times than any other championship side this season, with 26 different strikes all coming back off the post. Could you have imagined if they had a little bit more luck in that area? Jesus, we'd be looking at a team that was easily sweeping up about 120 goals or something, which would have been ludicrous. For Huddersfield, I really struggled to find a negative statistic, to be honest. You guys have been absolutely flawless throughout this year. The best I could come up with was the fact that Lee Nichols has faced the second most amounts of shots on target against him this season, which does show there have been a flurry of chances against Huddersfield at times, with 175 shots on target against him. Only Daniel Everson at Preston has faced more shots than the Huddersfield shot stopper this season. Hull are the only championship side this season to have not scored a penalty. They also average the fewest shots on target per 90, averaging just 3 shots per 90 on target, which is the lowest in the championship. Luton need to learn the offside rule. They've been caught offside more than any other championship club. 121 times this season has a Luton player been caught offside. They also have, interestingly enough, the worst pass completion rate in the whole of the Championship at just 65%. That right there is probably a consequence of the way Luton play football. They take a lot of risks in possession and things like that, but an interesting stat nonetheless. Middlesbrough have scored more own goals than any other Championship side, with 6 own goals scored throughout this season for Borough. They've not been the most prolific in front of their own goal, but they've been happy enough to stick it in the back of their own net, haven't they? Now, Millwall's problems this season have really only been away from home, and that can be seen by this statistic right here. They've only scored 10 goals from open play away from home all season. Obviously, at the Den they had one of the best home records in the league, scored a lot more goals at home as well, but away from home, Gary Rowett, as he likes to do, tended to shut up shop on quite a few occasions, and that's reflected there as they only scored 10 goals from open play in away matches. Now, Nottingham Forest have been pretty flawless under Steve Cooper, so I've had to pick out a negative statistic from Chris Hughton's era, and it was literally just the fact that under Chris Hughton they were averaging an abysmal 0.14 points per game, which is absolutely tragic. I know it's only taken over a small sample size of 7 matches, but across those first 7 matches they only accumulated 1 point, which is even more baffling when we consider how they've averaged 2 points per game or just over it since Cooper's arrival. It's been no secret that Peterborough have struggled to keep the ball out of the back of the net this season, and that's reflected with them having the worst defensive record in the Championship this season, having conceded 87 goals throughout the season. This was the fear with Peterborough coming up to the Championship this season. You know, it was very sort of expansive and exciting football in League One, but when you up the quality of the opposition, things like this can happen. I'm disappointed in Preston for this one because we have been the worst dribblers in the Championship this season. We've averaged just 5.1 dribbles per 90, which is the lowest amount of any Championship club. I think this is a reflection of our style of play and the personnel within our squad, really. You know, we don't play with any natural wingers. Our full-backs, or wing-backs as we call them, don't really tend to take players on. They're quite conventional in their roles, where they'll look to get the ball, pop it off and get across him, but in 1v1 situations we really struggle to get past people, apart from a couple of exceptions within the squad. So yeah, that's definitely an area that I'd like to see us brush up on next season. There's just no source in this Preston team at the moment. QPR could do with working on their throw-ins next season. They've had 0 throw-ins directly leading to shots this season. Obviously that's a reflection of their style of play. QPR aren't exactly known for being direct or anything like that. They don't hurtle the ball into the box from throw-ins or anything like that, but they are one of the only Championship sides to have not registered any shots directly from a throw-in coming in. Reading have been useless at defending set-piece situations this season. They've conceded from 21 set-piece scenarios, which is the most of any Championship club this season. They're definitely going to have to brush up on that going into next season. Reading have also been pretty bad at holding on to leads as well. They've lost the most matches after taking the lead themselves. 7 times this season that's happened to Reading, which has got to be a mentality issue more than anything else. Sheffield United don't tend to leave things late in the first half. They're one of the only sides to have not scored any goals in stoppage time after the 45-minute mark. 0 goals scored in that time frame for Sheffield United this season. Stoke have had the joint shortest unbeaten run this season. Inconsistency has been a little bit of a problem for them, but the longest consecutive amount of matches that Stoke have been unbeaten for throughout this season is only 4 matches, which is the joint lowest in the Championship. If they want to be a little bit more consistent next season, that's obviously going to be an area where they're going to have to brush up on. With Swansea, I'm sure it will come as no surprise to learn that they have been the worst aerial threat in the league this season. They only win 10 aerial duels per 90, which is considerably the lowest number in the Championship. As well as that, they've not been much of a threat from set-piece scenarios this season. Russell Martin's sides very much like to keep the ball down on the ground. They've only scored from 2 set pieces this season, which is the lowest number in the Championship. And wrapping it up with West Brom, they've been pretty useless at hitting the back of the net and actually hitting the target as well. They've got the worst shot on target percentage at just 29.1%, and to go along with that, they've got the worst goal per shot ratio at just 0.07, which isn't a great return, especially considering the calibre of players that West Brom have got in the final third. They've not been brilliant finishers this this year. But guys, there we have it. That will wrap it up for today's video. There was one negative statistic from every championship club. If you didn't see the other video we did a couple of weeks ago where we went over one positive statistic from every championship club, make sure to go ahead and check that one out. But it's always important to get a little bit of balance in here, get the positivity along with the negativity. If you did go on to enjoy today's video though guys, make sure to stick around, leave a like and do subscribe for some regular championship content. But other than that guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.